Greetings, everyone. Here are the main points of the video. Revealing the major secret in Donetsk, the Hell campaign to destroy the Russian army's final supply route. A top-secret fuel depot perfectly hidden under the cover of a cement factory, which supplied all the Kremlin's mechanized attack forces, has just been discovered and burned to ashes by Ukraine, turning it into a blazing sea of fire. A lightning-fast strike from 800 kilometers away completely paralyzed the full capacity of Russia's super oil refinery. Not stopping at the front lines, Ukraine has just carried out a ruthless military operation with long-range strikes, destroying all the core distillation workshops of the energy giant Syzran deep inside Russian territory. Can the refinery be restored, or will it stay in ruins? The tragedy at the front lines and in the rear, as the war machine is deprived of every drop of its lifeblood. Thousands of Russian soldiers have been stripped of their armored vehicles, forced to march dozens of kilometers into Ukraine's kill zones, while the rear is engulfed in violence, gunfights, and clashes over every liter of civilian fuel. Welcome to the analysis program of Unveiling. Before we get into the details, please take a few seconds to like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue. Thank you, dear audience. The leader is restless, Donetsk is devastated, and the giant factory is collapsing. Ladies and gentlemen, Donetsk has become the focal point of the most brutal strategic calculations. In the art of modern warfare, logistics is the lifeblood that determines the survival of every campaign. And on this blazing battlefield, the Russian army has tried to conceal a massive military secret. It is a vital logistics facility, an irreplaceable strategic asset, without which all efforts by Russian mechanized units to break through the front lines would be immediately paralyzed. To protect this valuable supply source from Ukraine's sophisticated reconnaissance network, Russia chose to camouflage it extremely carefully in the settlement of Novoambershivka, deep within the Donetsk region under their control. Initially, Moscow was completely confident that this location was out of range of Ukraine's conventional firepower systems, creating an absolutely safe zone for resupplying their forces. In Novoambershivka, instead of setting up exposed fuel depots that are easily detected from the air, the Russian military repurposed the vast grounds of a huge cement factory as cover. Fuel was quietly transported to the factory by a dedicated railway system, then distributed into reinforced underground tanks and camouflage tanks, all under the guise of civilian industrial operations. To maintain this perfect deception, for many months, Russia used trucks disguised as civilian vehicles to transport fuel out of the factory, supplying the depots of frontline corps. This plan ensured that Russian armored formations could continuously carry out mechanized attacks without fear of running out of fuel. However, those careful calculations failed against the Ukrainian army's superior reconnaissance and determined counterattack. On July 12, the 1st Azov Corps of Ukraine delivered a lightning strike, completely exposing the secret fuel base at Novoambershivka. In an extremely precise drone strike, they turned Russia's camouflage pride into a massive fireball. A raging sea of fire seemed to be summoned from the deepest depths of hell. Thousands of tons of priceless fuel, the lifeblood of Russian tanks, burned fiercely, while the vital railway lines leading into the plant were torn apart. The Azov forces called this desperate operation by a powerful name, Operation Hell. Operation Hell is a classic lesson in patience in digital reconnaissance. This devastating strike was not spontaneous, but the result of a carefully calculated asymmetric warfare strategy, planned in detail over many months. For the Azov fighters, launching a direct assault on the fortified cement plant would have been a suicidal and reckless act in the face of the strict defensive layers of the Russian garrison forces. Instead, they chose a silent battle using technology. Ukrainian reconnaissance drone pilots carried out a series of persistent surveillance flights over the skies of Novoambershivka. Each flight brought back invaluable pieces, gradually reconstructing the entire structural layout of the cement plant, pinpointing the exact locations of each underground tank, above-ground tank, and the entire supporting railway network. To realize this plan, Ukraine chose a very special weapon, the Hornet UAV, which is equipped with artificial intelligence, AI. This is a mid-range killer drone, which has been spreading terror among Russian supply convoys thanks to its ability to automatically locate and destroy targets with extreme precision. When all preparations were complete, the multi-layered combat scenario of Operation Hell was activated with a ruthlessness and precision as terrifying as a masterful chess game. Instead of rushing to attack the oil tanks immediately, the Ukrainian military took calculated steps to completely eliminate the enemy's ability to respond and repair the damage. The first shot was aimed at a specialized crane on the railway, the only tool Russia could use to clear debris and repair the railway when attacked. When all retreat and reinforcement routes had been blocked, the Azov Corps still did not rush to strike the fuel depot. They targeted the power substation, supplying electricity to the whole cement plant. When the lights suddenly went out and darkness covered everything, it was also the moment of utter panic weighing heavily on the minds of the Russian soldiers stationed there. From the arrogant confidence that their base was absolutely secure, they were suddenly confronted with a harsh reality. The enemy not only knew everything, but was also tightening the noose around them, preparing for an inevitable storm of destructive fire. Amidst the surrounding chaos, when even the coldest command centers on the other side of the front lost their bearings, the Azov Regiment made headlines on military news sites around the world. The next wave of drones approached, aiming directly at the massive fuel tanks in the railway system that had been meticulously located months earlier. The Russian army was powerless as its main fortified logistical stronghold burned and collapsed. A breathtaking surprise attack, surpassing all of Moscow's defensive scenarios in the occupied territories, was carried out with near-perfect precision, leaving the strategic fuel depot in Donetsk with no chance of survival. A representative of the 1st Azov Corps made a powerful statement on his personal Telegram channel, saying that fuel is the lifeblood that sustains war. To maintain the invasion machine, the Russian army has spent enormous effort building a logistics network they once believed was invulnerable to any Ukrainian strike. But the UAV pilots of Azov have completely rewritten the rules of the game. This campaign forced the Kremlin to make a painful decision, relocating a crucial part of its fuel supply network out of the occupied territories and deep into Russian territory. For the Russian soldiers fighting directly on the Donetsk front line, this logistical withdrawal means terrible gaps in fuel supplies for their operations. Will this slow down the pace of Russia's attacks? Analysts say it's very difficult to answer because political calculations at the top often prioritize territorial goals over the lives of soldiers. Those soldiers will still be pushed into assault waves or have to carry supplies and weapons themselves through deadly no-man's lands full of dangers without the protection of armored vehicles. This scenario paints an extremely tragic picture for the frontline forces. By destroying the Novoambrosevka lifeline, Ukraine has indirectly determined the fate of thousands of Russian soldiers on the battlefield. A ruthless but strategically calculated move to strangle the enemy's fighting capacity from the very start. The Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, Mr. Mikhail Fedorov, who serves as the chief architect of Kyiv's drone revolution, once revealed a bitter truth. Ukraine's campaign to strangle the enemy's supply lines has forced many Russian units to march up to 30 kilometers on foot to reach the battlefield. Imagine marching 30 kilometers exhausted under the constant surveillance of Ukrainian reconnaissance UAVs, where suicide drone operators are just waiting for an order to turn any moving target into dust. Now, the tragedy of marching on foot under a rain of drones is no longer a nightmare unique to Russian soldiers on the southern front. In Donetsk, the land that Marienkamp-Lin is determined to capture at any cost to declare a political victory to the world, Russian soldiers have just been deprived of their most precious fuel supply. They will have to keep walking on endless roads, moving forward on their own feet, where the line between life and death has never been so fragile. Behind the success of this pivotal campaign is the appearance of Hornet, a weapon considered the perfect fit for the Battle of Novoambrosevka. With an operational radius of up to 150 km, Hornet is a key factor in Ukraine's supply line interdiction strategy. Its ability to fly deep into enemy territory to hunt down mobile targets, such as tankers and fuel trucks, has been clearly demonstrated. However, at Novoambrosevka, the maximum limits of this UAV have not even been fully challenged yet. The secret fuel depot was stationary and well within Hornet's range, just 16 kilometers from the Russian border, according to reports from Pravda. Although it only carried a 4.5 kilogram warhead, not the largest in the world, that destructive power was more than enough to trigger a chain explosion in the fuel tanks, which are extremely sensitive to fire. What makes the Hornet a real nightmare for the Russian defense system is its integration of artificial intelligence through advanced navigation algorithms. This technology allows the drone to overcome the enemy's powerful electronic warfare jamming systems to reach its target. The AI algorithm detects and tracks targets, so Azov soldiers only need to enter initial coordinates. The technology then handles the rest automatically. This is the clearest manifestation of the brutal era of automated warfare, where the stings of Hornets strike directly at the Russian army's hope of maintaining the initiative in Donetsk. While the fire at the Novoambrashivka cement plant is still blazing, exposing Russia's failure to conceal it, Ukraine has proven that they do not have just one card to play. But while choking off Donetsk, they continue to launch another coordinated strike more than 800 kilometers away, further deepening the energy crisis of the enemy. In in-depth military analysis reports and continuous updates on the fighting from reputable media channels, experts have noted a dramatic new development right on the day Russia's biggest secret in Donetsk was exposed by the Hornet. Another wave of Ukrainian drones managed to penetrate hundreds of kilometers deep into Russian territory, striking and causing serious damage to the Syzran oil refinery in Samara province. If the raid in Donetsk is considered a smart interception right at the front line, then the next devastating blow delivered to the Syzran oil refinery in Samara province, located more than 800 kilometers deep inside Russia, is a thunderous hook straight into the Kremlin's war machine. This massive oil refinery, with a processing capacity of nearly 9 million tons of crude oil per year, has long been on Kiev's priority target list. But this time, everything is different. No longer just temporary damage, Ukraine's suicide drones have carried out a surgical strike with astonishing precision. All the primary distillation units of the plant have been completely disabled, bringing the operating capacity of this energy giant down to exactly zero. According to detailed sources from Euromaidan Press, this deep strike operation began on the night of July 11 and continued until the early morning of July 12. Before dawn could break, independent war monitoring channels like Supernova and Excelenova simultaneously broadcast terrifying images of thick black smoke and massive fireballs engulfing one of the largest oil refining complexes in the Russian Federation. These drones precisely targeted the plant's three critical processing units. First was the VAT-5 primary distillation unit, which handles up to 30% of the plant's total capacity, equivalent to about 2.6 million tons of oil per year. It didn't stop there. The VAT-6 workshop, with its massive capacity of over 6 million tons, was also hit directly. The perfect finishing blow was delivered when the drone swarm destroyed the VFM unit, the heart of the process for producing high-quality blending compounds. With 100% of its oil refining capacity paralyzed, Syzran has completely disappeared from Russia's energy supply map. To revive these ashes, Russia will have to spend weeks or even months and pay a high price. In the context of crippling sanctions from the West, which are strangling access to high-tech components that are essential for repairing these complex distillation towers. The combination of the Donetsk and Samara fronts has created a multi-layered offensive strategy that is extremely ruthless and effective. If the battle in Donetsk directly broke the supply lines on the flanks, the raid on Syzran was a steel punch that destroyed the source of vitality at its root. It is strangling Russia's entire supply chain, from domestic oil distillation towers to fuel trucks at the front lines. The result of this campaign is pushing the Kremlin into a severe domestic energy crisis, spreading to every corner of the country. Images show long lines of vehicles stretching for kilometers at gas stations across Russia. This fuel shortage has directly turned into horrific human tragedies on the battlefield. When armored vehicles were immobilized due to running out of fuel, Russian soldiers were forced to march up to 30 kilometers on foot under constant threat from Ukrainian suicide drones. The cold statistics from Pravda have reflected this tragic reality. In just 24 hours leading up to July 13, the Russian army suffered an estimated loss of about 1,600 soldiers, a record-high casualty rate. Earlier in June, when the logistics system began to crack, nearly 40,000 Russian soldiers fell as they became unprotected moving targets on the open battlefield. Nevertheless, the Kremlin stubbornly continues to pursue its goal of capturing the entire Donetsk province before the arbitrarily imposed deadlines. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Moscow has missed up to 15 self-imposed deadlines to establish control over the vast Donbass region, including failed milestones in 2026 such as March 31, and now the new deadline is December 31. However, the numbers on Putin's paperwork are completely detached from the harsh reality. The Zaziza news agency estimates that, at the current slow pace of advance, Russia would need another 10 to 24 years to take control of the remaining part of Donetsk, a period far too long for the lifetime of any dictator. The devastating fire that destroyed the Novoambershivka oil depot, right next to the front line, has officially buried the Kremlin's hopes for a quick victory in Donetsk. Russia will not be able to achieve victory here, at least not in the near future, as their army is forced to trudge through deadly kill zones due to fuel shortages. While the Russian military leadership is still struggling to find a solution to this difficult logistics problem, the Azov fighters have continued on their journey. Their silent reconnaissance drones are probably once again hovering in the sky, quietly recording the coordinates of the next secret targets that the enemy is desperately trying to hide. So, in your opinion, what does it mean when soldiers have to march dozens of kilometers on foot in Donetsk?